Well, first of all, it's raining day after day. We've had 40 degrees weather, rain, rain, rain. I'll show you a little bit of what's going on. Our 3-season porch is home to some of our warm weather starts, like our tomatoes. Some of these were already planted out, and then the weather got down into the low 40s, and I believe most of them died, so that's why I grow extra starts, extra sets, because I may have to plant them 2 or 3 times. You never know in the springtime until after about the 1st of May, and that looks like where we're going to have to be this year to really get something going. But this is a tomato starts. Also have some sweet potatoes down here. Outside in this little front bed that's full of also weeds, there are a few, you can't see them right now, Brussels sprouts planted, and also some kale planted. We've got some of our perennials, like our hostas, starting to come up. Some of our perennials are starting to come up, like in our shade garden here. And I noticed the other day that I have a columbine coming back. This little garden area, when we first got the house, was full of nothing but poison ivy, and it's north side of the house, very shaded in between the house and the walkway to come in, and I just used it like a woodland type garden, so I've got leaf mulch in there. That's there on purpose, believe it or not. Out in the main part of our place, I have a helper that came, and for pay he helped me rake, he raked the mulch, so we've got mulch up around a lilac border, and have that well mulched now. Got rid of our mulch piles, got some grass planted. Down here in our fence row, right at the very end, I just planted 2 hazel trees, or filberts. They look like a stick, so there's no point in me walking down there. We also transplanted a wild grown redbud that I found. We've got another redbud there and a peach tree. Here is one of our baby fruit trees. This is a Montmorency cherry, and as you can see, it's starting to get a little bit of fruit on it. We also seeded a few annuals in this flower bed up front. This is the sad state of my hens. They're just having to stand up here by the house and stay dry. They go out in the yard as soon as they can and get some grass and bugs and other things, other items. Because of all the cold, damp weather, my arthritis has been extremely bad the past few days. Had a really difficult time with girlies lifting my arm. It just won't lift. So I've been very limited as to what I can do around here. However, as you can see, we still have weeds and empty planters. My husband took the week off, of course, so it rains and rains. But one thing we did get accomplished was I measured and he cut and attached, but we got a new roof on my grandson's playhouse that he got for free from a friend. It still needs a lot of work. We need to get it up on a skid. It needs to have the siding fixed and painted and lots of other things, but at least we're in the dry now. So our little metal roof is on. That was what we did this last week when he was off. Like I said, I mostly just measured and he cut and assembled and put it together. Our fruit trees, haven't really gone through these as much as I should have probably in past vlogs, so I will on this rainy day. This is an experiment. This is 2 varieties of tree. They are planted in the same hole, as you can see, and they appear to be doing very well. When you prune trees like this, you prune them as one multi-trunk tree. So in other words, we want all the branches, as you can see, kind of to the outside. We don't want anything coming to the center so that they're commingling. But they seem to be doing rather well. These have been planted for about 2 years now. Let's see if I can get a picture. If this will focus or not. Okay, we have a mirror crest nectarine. And Reliance peach. These are both dwarf trees. They're both from Stark Brothers. And as you can see, we've got a few little teeny baby fruits on them this year. Now, when you have a tree that's this young and this floppy, a lot of this fruit will be pruned off. I'll only allow it to produce maybe half of the crop that it does, so that it will continue to grow and strengthen. You don't want to overdo it because it can break the branches with the heaviness of the fruit. So, as you know, a nectarine and a peach are in the same basic fruit family, so they should do well together. This is another tree that we have. It's still not showing any signs of blooming or fruiting. A Stanley prune plum, and it's been here since the peach and nectarine trees have. I think maybe it's not quite as rich of an area. And I have a second one over here. This fence row is kind of a difficult place because these are all oak trees. And oak trees have a lot of tannin in the bark, so they're acidic, and there's not a lot of things that will grow. Even though we have eastern, so we have morning sun in this area, we have a lot of afternoon shade, and what we have planted here are a few currant bushes. And I think I originally planted 8. Out of the original 8, I have 2 survivors. And of course, the poison ivy does well. And recently planted another one. So hopefully I'll be able to get currants established along here. All the currants I'm trying for are really tall. We still have a lot of trees, scrub coming up that we need to kill off. Bushes that we need to kill off, but you know, it's just a constant battle. This little hanger thing that's right here is a insect trap. It's not been baited for the year yet, but that's a squish vine borer trap. So nectarine's doing really well. Tree's not doing too bad either. One thing I want to say about the fruit trees, it's important to really check your climate. We're supposed to be a zone 6 here, but we have those occasional winters where we snap to like a zone 5. So I try to plant as cold resistant varieties as possible, and also things that bloom as late as possible, produce as late as possible in the season, because if I don't, we typically will have the tree bloom and then we're hit with a hard frost and we lose all the blossoms. So do a little research about your area before you plant your trees. In the container gardens, that's the state of my large area. Nothing done, nothing planted, chickens digging in it, giant mess. Here are a clump of grass And the 3 garlic plants that my chickens let me keep because they were tearing it up. In this tank we have Irish potatoes and onions. They're doing pretty well. This tank, which was planted the same day as this tank, you can see we have potatoes a little bit starting, but really no go. And this tank, which was also planted on the same day, and then had a chicken attack. So that's a mess. This is some of the mulch I'm starting to bring in. We're going to hopefully mulch all this area around so I don't have just weeds and mess all around these tanks, and make it a lot better for everybody and everything. But that's not happened yet because it's hard to work in the rain. Along this fence row we now have blueberries planted, and I've got 4 plants in there and they've been mulched. I've got a couple of them looking like they're starting to really kick off, and a couple of them that are a little slow. More unfinished projects. But in this section we have some of our little pullets started. These are replacement pullets, some additional pullets, and some of these are going to be for sale, and some of these are for a friend. And so this is their little lair. I'm going to do a video on how to make these pins for their little run. As you can see, they are growing and developing well, and they're quite safe out here. They have food and water inside the coop, little run space. They can go under for more area to play, and it's a good little grow out pen. Our turkey pen has the sunshade installed for the summer. Turkey flock is doing well. I've been gathering fertile hatching eggs from these 4 girls and 2 toms, and I thought I had a broody turkey hen, and she sat on eggs for about 3 days and then gave up the ghost. So these turkeys are not, I guess they're like right at a year old, so they're still very young, and just no brooding for them, but that's okay. We have other ways to get things done. The sheep pen or fold, roof's still leaking. You know how we've had it as a lambing stall and a winter stall. Now it's set up as a creep feeder station. This is a creep gate that I got from Premier One. I love their stuff. They do not sponsor me or anything, but they make very quality stuff. As you can see, this is a very heavy-duty gate. It has little panels. These roll so that when the lambs go in, if they bump them, it just rolls right around them. It doesn't harm them. It has a gate this way, horizontally, so that you can adjust it. Got lots of different adjustments over here. And it has a pipe. I don't know if you can see this or not, but there's a pin down there that you have to pull if you want to move that pipe. And then these pipes here come out the top and they go all the way down to the ground. So it provides a really good, secure way. The purpose of this is a little bit of extra feeding for the lambs. Takes a little stress off of the mamas. It's not a strictly grass-fed basis, so some people will object to this, but like I said, I do try to use non-GMO grains as much as possible, as much as I can afford. And right now they're eating a little bit of scratch grains, and they've got their little feeder back here and a little pan. The little pan's got some alfalfa meal in it, and then they can come in here and eat their grain, and mamas can't get to it. Mamas are grained separately. They each have their own feed pan, and they're grained every evening. So they get a little bite too, not much because I'm trying to primarily get it off of grass. They also have hay and of course water. Keep water here all the time so everybody can have food and drink. And we've got salt blocks. I also have a loose mineral feeder that I keep set up at all times with sheet mineral in it. And then of course their exterior pen, which is like their evening pen. Pasture's coming along nice. Here are the sheep. They're back here in this little run-in section of the barn. That green tub has loose sheep mineral in it. As you can see, they also have a mineral feeder here with some salt, which she's taking advantage of. They are in the ratty area of their lives now. They're starting to shed, as you can see, and they're itchy, so they're rubbing on everything, and they're leaving their hair behind and everything, and just making a general mess. Comparison for these lambs. These lambs are like 6 weeks old, something like that. We still have another salt block here left over from the horses, so I'm just leaving that to where they can access that also. Just plain white salt. The little lambs are licking on that quite a bit. But an important thing to note, if you're going to feed mineral, you want to put it off the ground and you want to put it someplace dry. Because if you put a salt block out in your pasture, the salt will leach down into the soil. It will kill all the plants around it, and they will stay dead for years and years and years. These two little lambs at the salt block right here are the two I'm planning on keeping. They're both ewes. This little lamb will be for sale. She's also a ewe. Can't keep them all. And little brother's going to the freezer camp. That's the plan. But as you can see, we've got rain, rain, and more rain. The pasture has greened up amazingly well. It's been mowed one time. We still have a few weeds that need to be eradicated, like the poke, which the sheep won't eat, and that pile of dark leaves there is burdock. So that's something that needs to be removed. And as you see, we got this all stripped out. This eventually will have gravel base in it, like a I should say call it rock dust, and it will be pitched so that it drains, and it'll just be a nice base for whatever we put back here, and then there'll be bedding put on top of it. But that way it'll drain and be a good base for these animals. There's some of the burdock. Cocklebur is the other name for it, in case you don't know. And cocklebur is a weed all of its own. It's a biennial, which means this is the first year of the plant. If you see this, dig this stupid thing up, kill it, whatever you gotta do. Chop it, hack it, mow it. Because it takes 2 years before it develops a seed pod. This is another project that I have a paid helper that's been working with this with me. I'm kind of directing traffic and he's doing most of the work. But we're clearing this area out because we have fences like this. And I don't know if you can see this very well, but try to indicate here. we have old barbed wire. See this old barbed wire here? Layer. Old barbed wire. We have old electric fence. We have old stock panel. And we have really messed up cattle panel laying on top of it. And as you can see, it's down on the ground where something can step on it, buried in mud, has missing wires down here, and you know, this is not a coyote proof fence. This is a mess. So this is where we're working. This is kind of one of the projects for spring fencing. Here's the bush honeysuckle. It's a beautiful flower. Smells great. As you can see, it gets to be very large. It's probably 30 foot high, 20 foot high at least. And very good spread on it. But all of these little honeysuckles will have a nice little red berry with seeds. And the birds love them. So what they do is they eat them. And then they sit on the fence rows and they poo. And your entire fence row gets taken over like this. Now, look at what we have. Little robin nest. How cute. This is why the barn needs gutters. Plus all that water could be put into a rain barrel so we could use it. See in here, hopefully, this is one of the solutions for hatching turkey eggs. This is one of my good proven broody hens that I've kept. As you can see, she's a good girl. And she is sitting on turkey eggs. She's sitting nice and tight. So I'm not going to bother her. Hopefully she will hatch us some turkey eggs. But I wanted to walk you out here and show you a little bit of what we've been doing.